Dear listeners, this is second part of story named I Walked In on My Wife and Her AP in Our Bed, the moment that shattered my world forever. So let's start. She fainted from shock. When she recovered, she said, "I love you, Jesse, but I can't marry you yet. Give me 6 months and ask again." I wasn't expecting that. And I felt disappointed, but she reassured me. We went furniture shopping the next day and her comment about the rocking chair, "This might come in handy in a year or two," gave me hope. Later, I introduced her to my family. My mom and Becky liked her. My little brother was smitten, and my stepdad's smirk showed approval. Only Grandma wasn't thrilled. The following Friday, I arrived at the new house to find she had already set up a dining room and guest room. She was unclothed on our new bed, teasing, "I was going to start without you." I went to Chris in every piece of furniture. That weekend, we barely made it past the bedroom. The next weekend, I was at a bar waiting for her when a guy punched me. After she left, I stayed for a few more drinks. As I headed home, 2 fire shots struck my car, instinct kicked in, and I dove behind my SUV. The drunk guy from earlier was coming after me shouting, "I'll make sure you never mess up another husband." I realized he wasn't finished with me. My stepdad's advice rang in my ears. Never leave a live snake behind. I waited silently, and when he was close, I threw my shoe to distract him. As he turned, I grabbed his weapon hand and yanked him back, causing the weapon to drop. I knocked him until I realized I had to stop before it went too far. I dragged him into my truck and drove to an abandoned barn. When he started waking up, I pulled him out, letting his head fall on the gravel. After splashing water on his face, he groggily realized what was happening. "I didn't plan to destroy you," I said, kicking his weapon away, "but I wanted to scare you." "A .32? Really?" He nodded weakly. "What do you want me to say? I'm not okay with you seeing my wife. Sooner or later, I'll get even. You might as well finish me now." Despite the situation, he wasn't backing down. I slapped him lightly and asked, "I'm not with anyone's wife, what can I do to end this?" Defeated, he told me to check his wallet. I pulled out a picture of Melody and my heart sank. It was her, younger, and a wedding dress. "Is that her?" he asked. "You didn't know, did you? How does it feel?" I couldn't respond. After talking a bit, we started drinking from the bottle of whiskey I had for the new house. The next morning, I woke up to find him holding the .32. "You're right, it's not much, but I wouldn't want to be shot by it," he said, putting it away. We talked more in the truck. He admitted he always suspected this would happen, given their age difference in time apart. He worked weekends as a trucker, leaving her plenty of time to stray. I asked what he planned to do. "Divorce her, of course. She's yours now if you still want her," he said with a bitter laugh. I admitted I wasn't sure I could trust her. We drove back to his car, and I reminded him not to forget his weapon. "Keep it," he said. "I don't need it to remember what almost happened." As he drove off, I asked one last time, "What are you going to do?" "You're lucky, you can walk away. I'm getting a divorce. If it gets messy, let me know and I'll testify for you." I watched him drive away, feeling both relief and loss. Later, I emailed Melody. "I'm not running, but I need time. Don't contact me until next weekend. I'll think about everything, but don't expect me to believe much." She replied quickly, "Thank you for letting me talk. There's a lot you don't know, and I want to explain. I'll be at your house next Saturday at 4 o'clock. Believe it or not, I love you." The week dragged on as I struggled with what to say. My coworkers noticed something was off and gave me space. A Saturday approached, my dread grew. When she arrived, I made her sit at the kitchen table. The one she spent weeks choosing. As she started to speak, I cut her off. Ground rules, I said firmly. No, I love use or apologies. Just explain why you went to bars and dated while married. Could you live with me doing the same thing? Tears filled her eyes. After a few moments, she began. She grew up poor, raised by an heavy drinker father after her mom left. She married Jerry for stability, not love. When their schedules conflicted, she started going out with friends to ease her loneliness. She always wore her rings, but then she met me. I didn't love Jerry like I love you, she admitted, but I respected him. I didn't know how to tell him. You should have left him when you realized how you felt. Instead, you used him as a backup, I said, frustrated. I know, she whispered. I shook my head. Even if we stayed together, how could I trust you? What happens when I'm gone for work? And you're lonely again, she cried, but I pushed on. It's about trust, Mel. I need to trust my partner completely, and right now I don't think that's you. She sat quietly, then said, I understand. But no one will ever love you as much as I do. Even if we never get back together, I'll prove that to you. She left without another word. We spoke only twice after that, with little progress. Eventually, she started emailing me. For months, the emails ended with her begging for another chance, though they became less frequent over time. She mentioned therapy and going with Jerry a couple of times. After 7 months, she stopped writing. Her last email read, My dear Jess, this will be my final message. I'm officially divorced now. The second best moment in my life. The first was meeting you. Therapy helped me realize I was too immature and selfish to marry Jerry. I stayed with him out of fear, but it was doomed from the start. I'm living with 2 other nurses now and I finally feel independent. In honor of my divorce, I'm giving you a gift. I'm letting you go. I realize now that if I were you, I wouldn't trust me either. I hope you find someone who loves you as much as I did. And still do. Mel. I stared at the screen, finger hovering over the delete button, but I couldn't do it. It was too painful to read again, so I saved it instead. That's how I drifted through life. If it weren't for work, I might have lost it altogether. It took almost 10 months before I went on a date again. She was the sister of a contractor I worked with, a witty, beautiful woman who enjoyed dancing close. I had fun, but there was no spark. After 2 more dates, she found someone else and we parted amicably. During this time, I saw Mel twice. Once at a stoplight, I spotted her through the window of a bistro smiling with friends. I sat there so long that the car behind me honked. She turned and saw me as I drove away. The second time was at a club where I was on a date with Tina. When our eyes met, Mel burst into tears and ran out. Her friend Gwen stopped by my table and angrily accused me of rubbing my new relationship in Mel's face. I stayed calm. It's been almost a year. We were bound to run into each other. Tell her I'm sorry if I upset her. But she needs to move on. Gwen muttered a hole as she walked away. Tina, noticing the tension, asked for the full story, and after I explained, she said, You're not over her. I saw your face when you noticed her. Jerry, who had started coming to my cousin's bar, and I eventually became friends. He admitted he still missed her sometimes. He told me one of her nurse friends mentioned they called her Nun, because she hadn't dated since me. She blamed it on how much I had spoiled her. Jerry shared that Mel had been writing letters of apology as part of her therapy. I admitted I'd received one, but didn't elaborate. Jerry had moved on though. He started dating a military widow. And they were a great match. I helped sponsor his stepdaughter's softball team. And we even planned his bachelor party. Watching Jerry's happiness made me think about my own future. Wondering if I'd ever be in the stands cheering on my own kids. I threw myself into work, taking on more contracts than we could handle. My family eventually convinced me to slow down, reminding me that quality was key. I passed on some jobs to competitors and got things back on track. Then I ran into Becca, a college friend, who offered me a contract to build a small stone cottage. I agreed, and as I worked, I discovered an old stash hidden in a chimney. Whiskey, letters, and a wedding ring. I returned the items to the family, who eventually donated them to a historical society. The story made the papers, sparking a wave of chimney excavations. Becca later invited me to a party to show off my work. While there, she mentioned she still kept in touch with Cindy, my ex. She showed me photos. Cindy had cut her hair and gained some weight. But she looked happy with her second husband, David. Becca told me Cindy had come clean about her past and was trying to make this marriage work. Surprisingly, I was genuinely happy for her. I hadn't thought about her in years, but it seemed like she had finally found peace. Meanwhile, I stopped dating, trying to figure myself out. Melody's ghost still lingered in my mind. On a whim, I sent her an email. Mel, I wasn't trying to make a statement when I saw you at the club. It was a coincidence, and I had no intention of hurting you. If it's any consolation, it ruined my night too. Jess, she replied the next day. I'm sorry I ruined your evening. I know it's over between us and we'll never be together again, but I can't stop loving you. I've given up trying. Time hasn't healed me. It's only made me miss you more. I got a job offer at another hospital far enough away that we won't run into each other. I think I'll take it and start fresh. Maybe then I'll finally move on. I wish you happiness, Jess. Mel, P.S. If you ever want to talk, just text. I thought about it. We didn't see each other much, but if moving would help her, I was fine with it. Maybe one of us could find happiness. And here we were dancing. The feeling was both familiar and different. Jerry bribed the orchestra to play 3 slow songs in a row. I would have stopped after the first, but she held on. When the music finally ended, she clutched my arm. Will you sit with me for a while? Please, I'll beg if I have to. To avoid embarrassment, I agreed. She led me to a small table in the back where we could talk. She made small talk for a minute before I stopped her. Just say what you really mean, Mel. She looked at me, her face determined. I want you back. I've tried to let you go, but I can't stop loving you. I can see it in your eyes. You still care about me. Why don't we start over? Give me one chance. If it doesn't work, I'll leave you alone. Please, just one date. She kissed me on the cheek and left. I watched her talk to Jerry and Anna before disappearing out the door. Jerry sat down next to me. Well, he asked. Well, what? I replied. Are you going to give her another chance? You deserve it. I stared at him in disbelief, but he only sighed and added. Since meeting you, she hasn't been with anyone else. She even apologized in a letter, saying she caught something at work and needed 6 months to clear. She's been through a lot. I thought about it for 2 weeks, then I called Mel and invited her to a concert in a neighboring town. After a long pause, she quietly said, yes. We met at the playground before the concert. She wore a pale yellow sundress, and her smile lit up when she saw me. We walked around, window shopped, and watched the show. When the duo performed a song about Rekindling romance, it brought a smile to her face. After the concert, I suggested we grab pizza at Giannis, one of our favorite spots. She agreed, tears in her eyes. We shared a pizza, and afterward, I walked her to her car. She hugged me, kissed my cheek, and drove off. I stood there wondering what it all meant. We went out 2 more times, a movie, where she snuggled up to me, and a day at the local fair. She laughed at the exhibits and admired quilts, reminding me of a time when she said she wanted to make quilts for our future children. I kept quiet, but I pocketed a flyer for a quilting club as a potential birthday gift. At the fair, we kissed for the first time while watching fireworks. It wasn't planned. It just happened. We didn't speak afterward, and when I drove her home, she simply walked into her house without a word. For the next 3 weeks, we didn't see each other. We talked on the phone, but she seemed distant, and I began to wonder if the kiss had been a mistake. I called home to let my family know I'd finished the project and would be back by Thursday. They were relieved, but worried I was overworking myself. I sighed, tossing my dirty laundry in the foyer, deciding to wash it later. I needed a shower first. Since buying the apartment, the only major change I made was remodeling the bathroom. It now had a huge shower with multiple nozzles and options for full flow, massage, or mist. Ironically, I had it designed with male in mind, but it wasn't finished until 2 weeks after we broke up. Living alone for a while, you stop thinking about what you're wearing. Then I heard a giggle. Male was sitting on my bed. What? How? Why? I stammered. She smiled. Your mom told me you'd be home tonight. You didn't ask for the keys back, remember? I'm here because I need to talk to you. Now get dressed and meet me in the living room. She grinned, teasing, or you could stay like that and I'll join you. Flustered, I quickly grabbed some clothes. When I came out, she was sitting in the rocking chair, smiling at me. I have something to say, and I need you to let me finish without interrupting, she said. I sat down on the couch we'd picked out together, memories flooding back. She started. I know I've seemed off lately. It's because I miss what we had, and I want it back. I want you back. I've realized you still love me, and I still love you. But love isn't the problem, it's trust. I lied to you and hurt you. I need to earn your trust again, so here's my plan. Let me move back in. You can install cameras, put a GPS tracker on my car, and even make me wear a bracelet like those criminals do. If that's not enough, I'll wear a chastity belt to prove you can trust me. She lowered her head, embarrassed. I gently explained, you don't need to do any of that. If we tried, it would destroy our relationship. Trust can't be forced. You'd end up presenting it, and I can't live like that. She started crying. I pulled her close and comforted. Horror. Is it over? She whispered. No, it's just beginning. What you were willing to do shows me we can make it work. Let's take our time and rebuild from here. Her smile, full of hope, reminded me of sunlight after a storm. The next morning, I planned to take her to breakfast and grab clothes from her apartment. She was working a double shift but would return for the weekend. I met her roommates, Amanda and Beth. Amanda, a twice-divorced blonde, had a crush on Mel while Beth had anger issues and was in therapy after her ex-husband left her. As soon as Mel left the room, they attacked me verbally. Amanda accused me of never forgiving Mel and eventually hurting her. Beth piled on, calling me an unforgiving idiot who would make Mel jump through hoops before dumping her again. Furious, I shot back. This has nothing to do with you two. Amanda, you're just in love with her. And Beth, you don't want anyone to be happy. Your husband deserves a medal for putting up with you. At that moment, Mel reappeared, catching the tail end of the argument. Amanda turned on her saying, "Mel, this guy isn't going to forgive you. He's just waiting for you to get comfortable so he can hurt you again." I was beyond mad. Pride isn't a bad thing, Amanda. It lets you live true to your beliefs. It helps you stand tall even when everything else falls apart. Mel stayed silent, and I sighed. Mel's ready. We're leaving. I took her hand and left the apartment, feeling relieved to be out of there. On the way to the car, Mel stayed quiet, and instead of taking her suitcase inside, she placed it in the trunk. I was confused. Mel, why not leave your suitcase here? You don't have to drive around with it. It'll be safe, and you can grab it later. She avoided eye contact. I'll pass. I'll probably just go home and crash after work. I need some time to think. That hit me hard. What's going on? Earlier, you regretted volunteering for the job, and now after listening to those angry women, you don't want to spend time with me. Frustrated, I added, "Fine. Go find someone else. But I've lived without you once. And if you start playing games, I'm done. I want my key back." I could tell she realized her mistake, but I wasn't in the mood to be reasonable. After everything we went through to get back together, was she really pulling away? I told myself I didn't need her. But I did. I missed her more than before and was angry at myself for getting my hopes up again. To distract myself, I threw myself into work, tackling a backlog of projects. I stayed away from home for 3 weeks, only taking a day off to do laundry and check on the house. When I got back, I was shocked to see her car in my driveway. Mel rushed out of the house and hugged me tightly, nearly knocking us both over. She was sobbing and mumbling incoherently. I had to force her wrists behind her back to stop her from gripping me too tightly. "Shut up!" I snapped, my raised voice surprising both of us. I stood up, leaving her on the ground. But her whimpers turned into screams. Despite wanting to shut her out, I couldn't ignore her pain. I picked her up and carried her inside. Not too gently, and got her some water. "Drink," I ordered. After a few sips, I asked, "How did you get here?" She whispered, "I broke the window." I couldn't believe it. "You what?" "I broke the window and used the spare key. I had a fight with Amanda and Beth. They kicked me out and I came here. You didn't respond to my calls or messages. I waited, hoping you'd come back. I just wanted to be near you. If you want me to leave, I will." Kicking her out seemed too harsh. "Not right now. Order a pizza. I'm starving. I'll be back after a shower." When I came out dressed in sweats, Mel had freshened up, looking younger and hopeful. The pizza arrived and we sat down to eat. I noticed she looked thinner. "Are you on a diet?" I asked. She shook her head. "Just haven't felt like eating much." After dinner, we sat in the living room. I didn't sit next to her, which disappointed her. But I needed to clear my head. "Tell me the truth, Mel. We both want to be together. But how can I trust you again? What can you do to prove it?" She had a plan. Couples counseling. A friend at work went through it and it helped her and her boyfriend work through their issues. "I think it's the only way to fix this. I'm willing to try, even if we realize we're not meant to be. This half-life is eliminating me. Please think about it." I agreed to consider it and she nodded. Then she started dragging her suitcase toward the door. "Where are you going?" I asked, surprised. "To a motel. I'll look for an apartment next week. I know you don't want me here," she said quietly. Instead of letting her leave, I picked up her suitcase and unpacked it. "Help me put this away," I said, teasing her by twirling one of her strings. Blushing, she smiled through her tears. "Fine, but you have to take them off as often as possible." "Agreed," I said. "But there will be some rules. Make an appointment for counseling and let's take this slow." She agreed and we drank wine together, savoring the moment. "We'll make it work, Mel. But I need to know I can trust you completely. If either of us feels it won't work, we have to be honest." She nodded, then added, "And I need you to spend more time with me. Not just 1 day a week, and promise to attend all our counseling sessions, no excuses." I promised, and we ended the conversation there. We didn't make love that night. It didn't feel right. Instead, I lay awake, wondering if we were finally on the right path. The next day, we started couples counseling. I was surprised she chose a male counselor, but she explained that he had the highest success rate. After individual sessions where we both expressed our hopes, we found our answers were more similar than we expected. When we started joint sessions with the counselor, he was calm, but direct. Mel would sometimes cry. And though I didn't cry, there were times he pushed me enough to make me want to strike him. During one session, Mel admitted what I had suspected. She stayed with Jerry as a safety net, in case I wasn't the man she hoped for. When she realized she wanted to be with me, she started the divorce process but didn't file right away because she wasn't sure how I felt. "That's ridiculous," I said, when she finally admitted it. The counselor agreed. "Melanie, is that really true?" he asked. "During those 6 months, you didn't feel sure of Jesse's love, even while staying with him on weekends. You still shared a bed with Jerry, exchanged caresses, and then did the same with Jesse. You only filed for divorce after getting caught." Mel suddenly shouted, surprising both of us. "You think I don't know what I did? I betrayed them both and ruined my chances for happiness." The counselor remained composed. "I don't think that's entirely true, or you two wouldn't be here. But I think we've gone as far as we can in these sessions." Both of us were shocked. "But we're not healed yet," Mel protested. "No, but you've reached the point where the rest is up to you. You love each other, that's clear. But the question is, can Jesse trust you again? You're both unsure whether the pain and effort are worth it. I can't make that decision for you. If you can forgive each other, you'll never regret it. If you can't, it's time to walk away. I wish you both luck." After that session, Mel and I tried to move forward for 3 months. We had good days, but triggers would cause tension. Things got stressful. She called me every night, and even sent pictures to prove she was at home. But it got tiresome. One night I told her, "Stop sending pictures. Stop locking yourself in the house. You made a mistake, and if you learned from it, we'll be fine. If not, it's over." She seemed to understand and soon started going out with friends. One night she called and thanked me for trusting her. That felt good. But even with the progress, I sensed something was still off. She had become quieter recently, and I worried we were nearing the end. Then we went to a flea market, one of her favorite places. Watching her browse with such grace, I saw her smile at me, but it quickly faded, replaced by sadness. I realized then that if I didn't change, I'd lose her. As we left, a sudden thunderstorm hit. Mel flinched, scared of storms, so I put my arm around her. I went to get the truck, praying for a way to break through my emotional walls. A song came on the radio, slow dancing, swaying to the music, and I glanced at a bumper sticker that read, "Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain." I knew what I had to do. I stepped out into the pouring rain, held out my hand and said, "If you love me, come dance with me. This is our last chance." Everyone was watching, and Mel, terrified of storms, hesitated, but eventually stepped into the rain and took my hand. The song ended after a minute, but it was enough. She faced her greatest fear for me. We laughed, cried, and made love when we got home. 9 months later, I found myself standing in line for the tallest roller coaster. Mel had told me she would one day ask me to prove my love and return. As I was strapped into the seat, she let go of my hand and stepped back. "You're not coming with me?" I asked, panicked. Tears welled up in her eyes as she smiled. "I can't," she said softly. "Why not?" I yelled as the ride started. That's when I saw the sign. Pregnant women are not allowed on this ride. Thanks for listening this story. If you love this type stories, make sure to subscribe our YouTube channel. I meet you in next story.